So about 2 months ago, I did a video on the Tudor Black Bay 58925 Silver. And like I said in that review, I was blown away by that watch. But it was my first time with a Black Bay 58, and while I did like the 925 sterling silver construction, I kinda think it was the Black Bay 58 in general that really impressed me. However, a diver without a metal bracelet is sort of a deal killer for me. And so I went on a mission to get my hands on the regular Black Bay 58 so that I could see firsthand if I'd be just as impressed with that model as I was with the 925 Silver Edition. And so that's exactly what we have here today, the Tudor Black Bay 58 reference M79030N-0001, the 39mm Black Bay diver. The black dial, black bezel combo with gilt accents on a metal bracelet. And as it turns out, yes, I am as huge of a fan of this watch as I was of the 925 silver model, if not even more so. Now, unfortunately, I don't own a Black Bay 58, and I don't have any friends locally who have one either, so I had to start making some phone calls. Luckily, I have a few watch dealers that I know who help out and support the channel, so I reached out to David SW to see if I could borrow this watch for a few days and make a video. Now, I only partner with brands and companies that I've dealt with and that I can trust. And having done business with David SW in the past, I know I can comfortably feature them on the channel, and I can recommend them to you guys with the utmost confidence. So thanks to David SW for loaning me the watch, and if you guys are looking to buy your next luxury watch, I would definitely recommend checking out their website, davidsw.com, or of course visiting their retail store in Orlando, Florida. So several years ago, I actually did a video on the 41mm Black Bay diver from Tudor, and while it's an incredibly well-made, high-quality watch at a relatively reasonable price compared to the competition, it honestly just didn't do it for me. I would for sure recommend it to people who are interested in the watch, but for me, it was just too large, too thick, and overall too bulky. So from that point forward, I let my attention focus on other watch brands and watch models, and I really didn't give Tudor much consideration. And boy, was that an error. The Black Bay 58 has been on the market for a few years now, released at Baselworld 2018 if I'm not mistaken, and I really should have been paying attention to this watch since day one, because I honestly feel like I'm the last person to the party. So first, a quick word about the specs before I get into my thoughts and my opinions on the watch. In terms of size, the watch comes in with a 39mm diameter. It has a wingspan of about 47.5mm from lug tip to lug tip, and an overall thickness of 12.5mm, and of course the bracelet rides between the lugs at 20mm. It has the in-house caliber MT5402 COSC automatic movement, which features a 70-hour power reserve. Of course, we have a screw-down crown sealing the case and providing 200 meters of waterproofness. The watch face is capped with a domed sapphire crystal. Being a dive watch, as you'd expect, we have a 60-minute unidirectional elapsed time bezel. It rides on a stainless steel bracelet with Tudor-signed clasp, and it comes in at a price of $3,700. Overall, it's actually a lot of watch for the money. And yes, it is a lot of money, but relative to the Seamasters and the Submariner, which I think it compares to fairly nicely, it's actually a great value proposition. Now, as for the pros and cons of this watch, let me hit the negatives first because there are just so very few of them, and they're mostly just subjective, so your mileage may actually vary. First and foremost, I'm just not a fan of snowflake hands. I never have been. Some people love them and some people hate them, and honestly, I wish that this watch was available with a handset like my Seiko SPB143, for example. Just a simple baton hour hand and matching with the minutes hand. That, to me, would be perfect. But I like the Black Bay 58 a lot, and the snowflake hands wouldn't be a total deal killer for me. I'd still be very happy to own this watch despite the handset. My next complaint has to do with the bracelet, and you might think I'm going to say the faux rivets on the bracelet are a problem for me, but I don't actually have a problem with that. My complaint is that the clasp doesn't have toolless glide lock style adjustment. The clasp is very nice, don't get me wrong, but as far as micro adjustment goes, it's just your standard spring bar style system with 3 positions. Yeah, it works, it's functional, but it would be nice to see some type of glide lock system on this clasp. Because honestly, more affordable watches on the market have it these days, so why not a Tudor? Finally, we have the gilt dial and bezel accents, which, honestly, I didn't think I'd be a fan of the design. And the truth is, I'm both not a fan and I kind of like it, if that makes any sense at all. See, on one hand, if this was my only watch, I wouldn't want gold hands, dial markers, and text, and the gold bezel graduations for that matter. I would tend to want my only watch to be a bit more traditional with a black dial and white metal hands and markers. However, in a collection where I already have a watch with a more traditional design, I actually kind of love this look. And I guess that brings us to the positives about this watch, and let's continue to talk about that dial a bit more. Yeah, as it turns out, I really do like that gilt dial aesthetic. I like the black aluminum bezel with the red triangle zero marker a lot as well. I think that it's a really handsome design that both feels classically vintage on a watch built to what I would say is the most modern of standards. The coin edge bezel has superb action, and while it is only 60 clicks as opposed to the more common 120 clicks, it's implemented perfectly. And yes, something about that little flick of red at the zero marker gives this watch a subtle cool factor that you just don't often see on the competition. The screw-down Tudor rose sign crown has a similar coin edge texture to the bezel, and it's slightly oversized, such that working with the crown to hack the movement, hand wind the watch, and to set the time works superbly. And unlike the 41mm Black Bay diver, there's no colored aluminum ring standing between the watch case and the crown, which I kind of prefer. The dial, the hands, and the bezel's zero marker lume pip are all filled with a bright glow-in-the-dark luminescent fill. Super luminova, if I had to guess, but the Tudor website doesn't specify the lume trade name. But regardless, it's a great lume, whatever it is. The watch case and the bracelet have a mix of both polished and brushed finishes, and the finishing is extremely well done. I can't say that I notice much difference in the quality of the finishing between this watch and my Rolex Submariner, honestly, which, as we all know, costs more than twice as much. Speaking of the bracelet, it's got a feature that I don't see on enough watches, but I absolutely love it, and that is the U-shaped pivoting end links. I love this classic design, perhaps more so than the standard T-shaped end links. Number one, because it just looks cool, and number two, it makes the watch wear ever so slightly smaller. The rest of the bracelet is really well done, starting at 20mm and tapering down slightly to the clasp. And yes, it does have those faux rivets, but I'm a fan of that design choice. And the Tudor signed clasp has a fold-over safety latch, and it is of the highest quality machine steel. But like I said, it could use better micro-adjustment systems. On the wrist, this watch wears perfectly for me, and I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist size, and this watch fits like a glove. I would say almost no one would feel like this watch wears too large, and I'd imagine people with wrists as large as 7.5 or even 8 inches could probably be comfortable with it. Although the Black Bay 41 might be preferable to those of you guys with the largest of wrist sizes. So yeah, overall, I love the Tudor Black Bay. What can I say? It's awesome. Sure, I wouldn't pick it to be my first watch or my only watch, but as part of a small collection, or heck, even a large collection, I would love to have one. I think that the mostly subjective negatives that I have with the watch are far outweighed by all of the positives, and as far as value for money goes, I can't think of much that tops this. Alright guys, that will wrap this one up for today. I hope you enjoyed checking out the Tudor Black Bay 58 with me, even if I was a couple of years late to the party. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about the watch? And do me a favor, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Also, one more quick thanks to David SW for loaning in the watch for this video. I do really appreciate it, and I can't recommend David SW enough. If you guys are in the market for a new watch, they are one of only a handful of dealers that I would personally do business with, and one that I would confidently recommend to you guys. And with all that said, let me say thanks again for tuning in and watching, and until the next one, I'll go ahead, sign off, and say bye now.